Today we're sewing a knit dress. This is the Mesa dress by Seamwork. You do not need to be a Seamwork member to access this pattern. You can purchase it and download it from their website by itself. For this project, I'm using a Modal French Terry with 4-way stretch. This is the caged black fabric that you can find at Waymaker Fabrics. And to bring out all of the gold lines in my fabric, I'm wearing my sculptural scroll jewelry from World Finds. And I've left a link to the pattern, the fabric, and the jewelry in the description below. For the majority of seams in this project, I am using my serger, but you can use your sewing machine to construct the entire garment. For the main seams, you can use a zigzag stitch with a width of 0.5 millimeters and a length of 2.5 millimeters. And if you're not using a cover stitch machine today to do all of your hems, you can serge all of the raw edges first, and then top stitch with a zigzag stitch or a twin needle to get a finish much like that of a cover stitch. I hope you join me in sewing today, so grab all of your materials and let's make the Mesa dress. Place your front and back pieces right sides together, matching your shoulder seams and pin in place. Sew or serge your shoulder seams with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once those shoulder seams are sewn, open out your front and back pieces. We're going to place our sleeves right sides together with the bodice, making sure to match the notches that indicate front and back, as well as the top notch on the sleeve, which will match with your shoulder seam. And pin in place. Once that's pinned, pin your other sleeve to the opposite side in the same way. Now with our sleeves pinned in place, we're going to sew them with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, using the stretch of the material to ease in where needed to get a perfect fit from notch to notch. Now that our sleeves are sewn, we're going to place the front and back pieces right sides together and pin the side seams in place from the top of the slit all the way to the bottom of the sleeve, making sure that the underarm seams align. Pinning in place on both sides. And now, beginning at the top of this slit, we're going to sew or serge with the 3/8 inch seam allowance all the way up and past that underarm seam, sewing all the way to the bottom of the sleeve in one continuous stitch. Doing this on both sides of the dress. Now for the side slits on the bottom of the dress, I want to finish both outside edges of the slits separately. While I'm finishing those side seams, I'm also going to finish the bottoms of the front and back dress pieces separately as well. Doing this for both front and back pieces and both sides of the slits. Now that I've finished the edges of the slit, I'm going to fold them back so that they nicely meet the seam line of the rest of the side seam and pin in place. Doing this for both sides of the slit. Then we're essentially going to top stitch those side slits in place from the top of each slit to the bottom using your cover stitch, a zigzag stitch, or your twin needle. The hem allowance for the bottom of the dress is also 3/8 of an inch, so you can fold those serged edges to the wrong side by 3/8 of an inch and pin in place all the way across. Doing this for the back and the front of the dress. Now that my front and back hems are pinned in place, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and once again, using a cover stitch, a twin needle, or a zigzag stitch, sew that hem in place from side to side for the front and the back. Now that the bottom hem is complete, I'm going to turn my dress inside out. And for the bottoms of my sleeve, I'm going to finish the edges with my serger just as I did for the bottom of the dress, finishing the edges for both sleeves. Then I'm going to fold those edges to the wrong side by 1/2 of an inch all the way around and pin in place. Doing the same for both sleeves. Then once again with a zigzag stitch, a twin needle, or your cover stitch machine, go ahead and sew those hems in place. Fold your neckband in half right sides together so that the short edges meet. And pin in place. Sew or serge with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once that's sewn, we can fold our neckband in half the long way, wrong sides together, and give that a gentle press. Now I'm going to mark and pin the quarter points of my neckband, and I'm going to mark and pin the quarter points of my neckline as well. Now I'll place the seam line of my neckband right sides together with my center back and pin in place. And then continue pinning together at each of the quarter points, just matching the raw edges of the neckband with the raw edge of the neckline. Now take this to the sewing machine or the serger and sew the neckband to the neckline all the way around with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, slightly stretching that neckband as needed to get a perfect fit from quarter point to quarter point. Now that my neckband is attached, I'm going to fold it up and away from the dress. And we're going to top stitch the seam allowance right underneath that adjoining seam, and I'm going to be using a zigzag stitch 1 millimeter wide and 2.5 millimeters long, top stitching that neckline all the way around. Give everything a nice final press and your dress is complete. Thank you for watching this sew along. Check out the rest of my video library for more great sewing tutorials, and I'll see you in the next video.